Now, Namibia's revised foreign policy puts emphasis, amongst others, on economic diplomacy as a basis for the country to attract sustainable investments through bilateral and multilateral partnerships. The late President Hage Geingob was a top diplomat. In 1972, President Geingob was appointed to the United Nations Secretariat as Political Affairs Officer. In 1975, he was appointed director of the United Nations Institute for Namibia in Lusaka, Zambia, where he and his team were responsible for starting the institute, whose primary function was to train cadres who could take over the civil service upon Namibia's independence. We're now engaging different diplomats across the globe representing Namibia and their interests to speak to us about their experience having worked alongside President Geingob and what he's done and what he's contributed to putting Namibia on the global map. Joining us this afternoon is Ambassador Dr. Mekondjo Kaapanda-Girnus, Namibia's ambassador to the European Union, as well as Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg. Good afternoon, Ambassador, and welcome to this special tribute broadcast.
Good afternoon, Denver. Thank you for having me.
Ambassador, I would imagine that it must be even tougher for those of you who are not in the country while we're mourning the president, and we received the news also whilst being so far away from home.
Absolutely. I think, like many fellow Namibians, we received the news with great sadness, with disbelief, with shock, and indeed it was very difficult to be so far away. We were not able to gather with fellow Namibians. It was the weekend, but of course we tried to connect via the telephone, via WhatsApp messages, and try to grieve, together and collectively. And I think at this point, I would like to express my condolences, particularly to the family of President Geingob, his widow, Madame Geingob, his children, other relatives. I think it's clear that we're all mourning our president, our head of state, but of course the family is mourning somebody who is much more dear to them, and our thoughts and our prayers are with them at this particular moment.
Thank you, Ambassador. Now, over the last week and a half, we've taken stock of the legacy of the late Dr. Geingob, and it's very clear that it is multifaceted, that it is multi-layered. From where you stand, how would you describe the legacy that he's leaving us with?
I think you're right to say that he leaves us with a very rich legacy, and I think this is a legacy that will be analyzed by scholars, by political commentators, and indeed by ordinary Namibians for many, many years to come, and rightly so. I think for me, his legacy really lies in a set of intellectual ideas and concepts that he left us with, ideas and concepts which I find very valuable, which I find very powerful, and I think that will be relevant with us for a very, very long time. I'm talking, for example, the concept of the Namibian house, the concept of Harambe. I think that these are concepts that will guide us for many years to come, that will constantly remind us that it is imperative that we work together, that we pull together in common purpose, and that we strive to build an equitable and fair society where no one is left behind. I also think that his commitment to processes, systems, and institutions will also remain with us for a long time. I think every time we talk about good governance and what good governance means and what it means to have a government that is transparent, that is effective, and also accountable, I think we will revert to this very powerful phrase, which I think has so much relevance and so much power.
As a teacher, his leadership style has been described, amongst others, as both being firm, but also being very generous and very kind and very caring. What is your take on his leadership style?
I had the honor and the privilege to, I think, work with the president and also interact with him in various roles. He was a Minister of Industrialization and Trade, or Minister of Trade. Then when I used to work for the NIC, the Namibian Investment Center, I also interacted with him when he was prime minister, and finally when he was president. And the qualities that you describe are qualities that I recognize very much. He was extremely hardworking. I think the presidency is a very demanding and high pressure role, and he embraced that. He was somebody who worked very long hours, who had always a very full, schedules. He had many, engagements, whether he was abroad or whether he was at home. And when he would come to our missions, for example, and we would discuss his programs, and we would maybe talk about, should we leave this appointment out? He would say, no, I came here to work. So I think this work ethic is something that I will remember for a very long time. Also, he was somebody who was absolutely committed to quality and excellence. He believed in those principles, and he inspired those around him to also always strive for excellence. He used to talk about Namibia being a boutique destination, and I think he didn't just talk about that in a tourism sense. He really talked about this quality. This excellence is something that we should strive for in all aspects of our lives, as we interact with other countries, as we pursue our diplomacy, as we promote Namibia, as we host events. He was a very proud Namibian, and I think he was very pleased when he saw fellow Namibians excel, and he wanted always that we put our best foot forward.
Speaking about his role as a diplomat, speaking about the role that he fulfilled specifically in the sphere of economic diplomacy, also having taken Namibia and her new emerging industries to the World Economic Forum, what has your experience been? How has he been received by those global participants?
I think what diplomats such as myself find very exciting and very rewarding is that certainly during the years of his presidency, we saw Namibia's visibility on the global stage change significantly. The president believed in the importance of economic diplomacy, as you have said. Our diplomacy is multifaceted. We are pursuing multiple objectives, all of them, which are of course very, very important. But I think in the last years, it became clear that in order for our country to succeed, in order for us to unlock new areas and new opportunities for growth and development, we needed to really up our game when it comes to economic diplomacy, when it comes to attracting foreign direct investment, when it comes to establishing new trade linkages and new partnerships. And I think the president was somebody who always believed in international cooperation, international solidarity, and international partnership. These were things that were very much part of his personal biography, but there were also things that I think in the history of our country. This is how we achieved our independence. So he was able to sort of use those qualities and also apply them in the sphere of economic diplomacy, where we very much pursued new partnerships, very much recognizing that when you are a small state in the international arena, you have to be smart and you have to be strategic in trying to achieve your objectives, because you don't have the resources that maybe bigger, more affluent and more powerful countries have. So if you want to develop your economy, if you want to unlock new opportunities, have new engines of growth, create new industries, then maybe one of the ways that you can do that is to establish smart partnerships, strategic partnerships with like-minded countries, where you're able to combine your strengths and through a win-win situation achieve something together.
To what extent have those smart and strategic partnerships capacitated and enhanced our diplomatic footprint in the European Union, in the Netherlands, in Belgium and Luxembourg, Ambassador?
I think what has pleased me very much is that we have been able to really grow and deepen our relations with the European Union and also with EU member states such as the Netherlands and such as Belgium. We are seeing significant investments from those countries, from those regions. We are seeing companies from those countries being active in Namibia, pursuing business opportunities in Namibia. In the last couple of years, we have seen business delegations, from the Netherlands, from Belgium, companies that are going to Namibia, many of them for the first time, in order to explore opportunities and in order to establish, themselves. And they do this in a number of sectors. So we are developing a very diverse bilateral economic relationship where we're looking at new trade linkages as well as investment linkages as well. And I think the visit, for example, of the Dutch Prime Minister last year was an indication of how far we have come. The fact that we are negotiating, new agreements is also an indication that we are elevating our relationship. The fact that we have, for example, an MOU and a roadmap with the European Union, where we are exploring cooperation in the area of green hydrogen and critical raw materials value chains. This is, I think, very exciting for our country, and we're hoping that this partnership, that these new linkages will bear fruit and that they will bring benefits for Namibia in terms of our economy, but also the lives of ordinary Namibians.
Ambassador, as we're starting to slowly wrap up our conversation this afternoon, let's talk about some personal impressions. Are there any fond memories that you have of Dr. Geingob that you'd like to share with us, please?
Yes, very much. I think it was an honor to get to know the president also as a human being, the person behind the title and the status, the private man. And I was able to experience him as somebody who had a sense of humor, a great sense of humor. So you could really have a good laugh with him. He liked making jokes. We all know that he was very passionate about sports. So we had many conversations about football, about tennis, because those were the two sports that we both had a passion for. And we supported different teams. So he would tease me mercilessly about the team that I was supporting. He was also somebody who really took an interest in people. He would ask about you and how you were and about your family. And he was also somebody who I think was fond of children. He was always very generous with his time. If he was, for example, at mission and the children of the embassy staff were around, he would take his time to talk with them, to ask them questions, to answer their questions as well, in a very patient manner. And these were qualities that I appreciated very much.
Doctor, we do know which team the president supported. Are we to infer that you were a Manchester United fan?
Indeed, I was. And we've been going through a very bad, I would like to say a couple of months, but it's been much longer than that. And the president would sometimes gloat about that.
Yeah, it's not a recession that Manchester United is going through. It's in fact a depression.
It's a terrible situation.
Doctor, what will you miss most about the late Dr. Geingob?
I will miss him as a leader, as somebody that was very inclusive. He was somebody. If you look at the team, around him, it was always a very inclusive teams, Namibians of diverse backgrounds, people that were there because of merit, because of their qualifications. So when we talk about the president as somebody who embraced inclusivity, this was not just a slogan for him, some sort of theoretical commitment. This is something that he lived by. But I am comforted by the fact that many of the values and the principles that he embraced and that he advocated for, values and principles that we find in other leaders as well, values and principles that I think many ordinary Namibians embrace as well. And I think this the best way to honor somebody, to cement, that legacy, whereby you have a broad consensus that these are principles and values that we all can live by, and that we should all embrace.
Doctor, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for sharing those experiences.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Mekondjo Kaapanda-Girnus, Namibia's ambassador to the EU and the Netherlands, Belgium and Luxembourg, remembering Dr. Geingob as a hard worker, a man with a sense of humor, and a man who lived inclusivity. We'll be back after a brief break.